At first light this morning, a defiant grandmother cleared the last of her belongings from her beloved home. As the diggers rolled into place, the view from the beach showed exactly how precarious her cliff-top house had become. While machinery crunched through the building, Bryony Nearop Redding remained stoic, but admitted she knew this day was coming. Preferring to stay put while other houses were removed, she says to enjoy the view for as long as possible and to highlight coastal erosion.
Restful waterways of the Broads, sweeping landscapes, the wide expanses of sea, sand and greenery. Towns and villages rich with centuries of character, and the hospitality of the Norfolk people. These are the attractions that enchant visitors so much that they return to North Norfolk year after year.
Is at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is just sheer brute strength, which I don't have anymore, which is a damn nuisance. Whoops. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of mad building a conservatory which will only get about 3 or 4 years' use, but they're lovely things to have. And the cats will like it, and I will like it. It's this blasted one. I should have put it on the inside to start with, except there wasn't room to do so. Mel, are you busy? I need a hand for about 1.5 minutes, but I need some brute strength and I just can't do it.
Have you got a little a bottle jack or something like that?
Trolley jack, yes. Oh, I see what you mean. Do you know, I hadn't thought of that. That is a good idea, thank you. Yep. Okay. Yep. This has been so useful for so many things. Better. Thank you, Mel. So now I've got to find a series of solid things to stand it on. Luckily, I have a lot of wood. Whew. I've never lived in a village before. I've never felt integrated into a community before. I mean, my life in Hayesborough is rather like being on holiday every day of the year. The views are beautiful, the skies are superb. One is welcomed and made part of it, and this is why I feel really at home here. At the same time that my home here is actually going to disappear from under my feet. Are we off? Creepers. So it was the 13th of December 2021, last year. We had 8 metres of road. On the 19th of February this year, we had 6.6. The longest bit, we're talking about 35 metres. And the date's the 28th, so that's not good. So 2.3 metres has gone in 10 days. This is all, that's part of my bungalow that was out there. I saved all the timbers I possibly could for reuse. This is all my domestic equipment that has been ruined, my computers. So I'm still clearing up after 2013. Which is very, very sad. Looking at the sea on a day like this, it looks as if butter wouldn't melt in its mouth, doesn't it? I was expecting a peaceful, uninterrupted, harmonious life, living with nature, enjoying the sea, instead of which actually I have found that I have my back against the wall, living first in a house which disappeared, now living in a house which is severely threatened. So there are sort of two sides to my life. On the one side there is the tranquil side, and the other is very much a I have to get up and do something about it side.
So this is little Marley, who's a Pomchi, adorable. I took him on about 4 years ago. He lives like a king. He gets his roast chicken every day that I cook for him, and his biscuits and his mashed potato that he loves. And we walk between 2 and 3 times a day. We do at least about a mile, probably a mile and a half a day. And he's absolutely a wonderful, wonderful dog. And don't try and come in the house, else he'll bite you. Little mole. So if you'd like to follow me around, this is the kitchen with the new table and chairs. And then we walk through into the lounge. This was a disgusting colour. Headrest was red. This was yellow, I believe. So now it's all neutral colours. All new suites, carpets, new fire. So into the main bedroom. Decorated again, carpet, new bed, furniture. Lovely view of the garden. A lovely, lovely little place. Sounds as though I'm trying to sell this.
Think you'll get much luck on that?
I don't know, it's not up for sale yet. But there's another bedroom in there, another double, so that's nice. All the ceilings have been done. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a lovely place to be. It's just a crying shame. I don't know how long it's going to be here for because of the erosion. But, you know, that's up to central government to sort that out. And let's hope that they do. Okay? The community is brilliant. One local little store, fishmongers. I've always enjoyed village life, so it's very enjoyable. Very enjoyable indeed. I used to sail the Norfolk Broad, so I know this area very well. I used to call it Hayesborough, but of course I was soon corrected on that. It's Hayesborough. I moved here 2018. Me and the wife had both retired. My first impression of the house was well, everything that I'd ever hoped for. A small little cottage next to the sea. And as soon as the wife saw it, she said in front of the previous owners, "Don't let me down, Melvin. I want this house, so whatever it costs, I want you to buy it for me." So it kind of stumped the negotiation somewhat. We came on a wing and a prayer. And everything was going swimmingly until she passed away. It's when I first started to walk the dog over, there used to be a field just over here, and it was a good 2 acres, and it started to disappear quite rapidly. That's on the beach now. And then you've got a massive ingress of land, and then that makes it pretty obvious that things are getting rather bad. It's not very often where you know that the house is not going to outlast you. As I say, and if I knew that at the time, I never would have bought the property.
We have a soft coastline and it's always been eroding. There are lots of historic settlements that don't exist anymore. Shipton, for example, Eccles. The storm surge in 1953 was the really notable event that we look back to because that changed everything in terms of our perception of risk on the coast and the danger of coastal flooding. So the realisation that the defences at that point weren't adequate. .307 people died, 40,000 made homeless. It was a really terrible event and it really lies heavy, I think, in the memory of people in this part of the world. The government response then was to put this huge pulse of investment into defending the coast to a higher standard. So we saw a massive programme of defence construction. They were never permanent because they were made of wood. They became compromised, I suppose, a bit dilapidated and dangerous, and to the extent that some had to be removed. For each area of coast, the shoreline management plan gives us a policy direction. Where the line of defence is going to be held, that's called hold the line. Some places, the policy decision is no active intervention. For places like Hayesborough, having had a line of defence and seeing the policy change to no intervention, that's a stark difference, and that must have been really frightening when people were able to see their homes in risk zones on maps. There is no plan at the moment to restore defences at Hayesborough, and of course that has come at great cost to the community, to the place, because the erosion has been extremely rapid, it's accelerated, and it's really shocking to see. It's all very well having a policy that says that's evidence-based and that's draws on kind of technical science, but it's not okay to have a policy like that without understanding the consequences and without making provision for a very quickly retreating edge, which is putting people at risk and their homes at risk and in potential danger.
Hello. Hey, chickapoo. Hello, sweetie chops. Are you all right? You going to come say hello? Come on then. Say hi. Oh, yeah. I know. Come on in. Yeah. I can actually see the edge of the cliff now, which I never used to be able to. You're going to talk? Just one little road there and that's it there. So I never used to have a sea view here. So you can see it coming through. There's a crack coming through here and then you've got it going down there. So it's obviously it's the cliff falls and things like that are causing the damage, but it just makes it look scruffy. This is what, you know, because people just think you just don't care about your house, but I do, but it's just I don't want to spend any more money on it, basically. Why would I? You know, it's starting to come through here, and I've had a leak there, but I've had to try and I've got to see if I can get that just patched up a bit. It's just a bit of a mess down there because I've had a leak in the thing, but you've got the flat roof, it's falling to bits. Yeah, you just don't want to spend lots of money on it, but you still want a nice house, you know? We came from a busy town where it's quite dangerous, no one spoke to you, no eye contact. But here, I know everyone along this road. And that's what I wanted. Open air, after a hard day at work, doing nursing, being able to go down on the beach with the kids after school.
Here we go. Go. Oh, 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 oh. Come on, no.
That's what I like about it. I've got to stop being an ostrich now and not bury my head in the sand, and it is actually happening. It was easy to do that when there was a bloody great big field and a road behind there and a row of houses, but now when you come out of your drive and you look right and you can see the end of the cliff. A few years ago, couldn't see that. The locals get a bit bored of it. Sometimes you get people going, I've had enough of this, you know, just shut up, you know. Just get on with it. It's nature, this is what's happening. Yeah, fair enough, it is. But they're not teetering on the edge. So especially when you get verbally shouted at, you've got no right to be telling people stuff like this. I lost the sale of my house because of you saying what you did. But that's probably what I was like. But it's not going to happen in my lifetime. Don't bother me, it's not my problem. This is one of Violet's, but we've ended up being close friends. We're happy here though, but just the cliffs aren't. They're not. Just can't believe how much has gone actually.
Well, when we first moved in, of course, typical agents, they only tell you the positives, they don't tell you anything about the negatives. And I didn't actually approach the subject about erosion because I didn't know about it. The only thing that was mentioned that we were actually living in a floodplain, and they just laughed that off. Well, probably I would as well. But you would live in a floodplain if you were over the cliff. And eventually that's what's going to happen. Well, I think I've been duped. A couple just down the road where they've been in exactly the same situation, they weren't informed either. And they feel bitter, like I feel bitter about it. If you go down as far as Cromer, they've got massive sea defences. Got Munsley, Bacton, where the gasworks is. Walcott, a village called Ostend. Further on you've got Eccles, Cart Gap, Sea Pauling, lovely sea defences. But you've got this little bit in the middle with nothing. So it just, as far as I can see, just accentuates the problem. It just seems to funnel down here.
Makes me quite angry. I just wonder why Hayesborough's been left out. People go, well, they can't defend everywhere, you know. Why not, you know? Let's build a little fortress all the way around, you know. If we were London, they'd want to protect us, you know. I get it, it's money.
Sometimes you feel so mad, so let down, that, you know, you blame yourself, why am I in this predicament? And then you think to yourself, well, you're in this predicament because it's somebody else's fault, not mine.
I try not to think about it too much because it can really mess you up.
You know, where does it stop? It's got to stop now. We need some sea defences. That's what we need.
I think there's been a mental block about facing up to stuff, and it's quite honestly, it's really depressing because one is in effect throwing away chunks of one's life, but it's also sort of cathartic to tidy up and feel that you've got less clutter around as well. I think that's a folder which is not going to do any good, so I'm afraid that one's out. That's ironic, isn't it? How to de-junk your life. When I get depressed about doing all this, I read that and I keep going longer. Dictionary of surnames, that'll go with the dictionaries. Now I've got another box. This is the worst bit. I clear the boxes, I throw out as much as I possibly can bear to, and then I've got to find homes for all the rest of it. Oh, a bird bath in a box. That will be useful. I've ground to a halt. I'm overcome. The parish council, the first meeting I went to, the chairman said, you know, we've had bad tidal surge here. Luckily, we haven't had much damage. He said, Bryony's lost her bungalow, of course, and I wish she'd lost the rest of her buildings on that site as well. At which point I burst into tears and left the meeting because it was cruel. My garage was still standing where I'd got all my stuff piled up in. Also, when I rang to find out if I was getting anything from the flood fund, to be told by the district council, no, there's an eviction order served on you. That was the first I'd heard of it. I'd only been in there for a week. So I'd moved from a bungalow that was demolished into a caravan and was about to be evicted. They said to me, if you don't get rid of your caravan off the field, we are going to come with a JCB and smash it up, and we'll charge you £2,000 for doing that. It seemed very, very cruel of the district council to have done that, because I consider I was an environmental refugee at that point, but they had no compassion. Do you mind pulling the door across after you when you come out? This caravan I'm in, the stuff in here was put in the week between the 5th and the 12th of December, which was the gap between the tidal surge on the 5th and the 12th when my bungalow was demolished. And it's been standing here till 2022, but now I'm having a serious go at clearing it out, tidying it up, tidying this bit of my life up, and then I'm going to get rid of the caravan altogether. I know it sounds very sort of wimpy putting it like that, but some people are good at facing up to awful things straight away, and I'm not. Shut the door behind me. I understood why people sit on the ground after a tsunami and don't do anything about rebuilding their houses, because one is impacted with a kind of shock which makes one unable to make decisions about things. It was a serious struggle. And but it was probably the most difficult time of my life ever.
Yeah, I love Hayesborough. I have a personal connection, I think, just having lived in Norfolk for a long time since I was a student, far too many years ago, that, you know, and having friendships and a group of friends who used to love going to the coast. We used to go camping at Hayesborough every summer, go to the beer festival. You used to be able to wake up and get out your tent and look out over the sea. In some ways, I was always worried that my skills were never disciplinary enough. But I'm coming to understand now that it's really important to be able to look across the piece and to understand how all of those things intersect. So how environmental processes link to the economy and history and culture and sense of place in coastal towns. I love it. I just think that's so interesting, that intersection between kind of the environmental change and what might happen in the future, and actually then how we cope with it now. The psychology of human beings is that we have home and we have attachment to places and to other people. Memories of Hayesborough and people's time spent there, those become really precious, and it is really hard to see a place change when you have no control over that change. For people in Hayesborough, it must be really, it's difficult living with the imminence of the risk, but the uncertainty as well. A lot of that, probably that sense of anxiety and those sorts of feelings are born of also having no options. So the flip side is, I think if there were kind of options available for relocation, for compensation, for all sorts of other things that might make them feel like they had something to fall back on. Sadly, at the moment, there aren't any options or processes that exist apart from a grant for demolition, which just seems crazy.
This week, Environment Minister Rebecca Powell saw North Norfolk's captivating but crumbling coastline for herself. Here to announce new funding for the district, not to try and stop coastal erosion, but to try and live with it.
This is about thinking of other ways of living with coastal erosion, like the car park over there, that you could lift up and move back, and the same with pathways and walkways.
What do you say to residents who feel like that's them being abandoned, that's them being given up on?
I think the message is we're not abandoning anybody, and I think the fact that the government has doubled its budget towards flooding and coastal erosion demonstrates how seriously we're taking that.
So what we call the CTAP project, the Coastal Transition Accelerator Programme, I'm really excited about it. I'm so pleased that in 2020 we had a policy statement and a national strategy which used the terms adaptation and resilience. Those things are mainstream. We got some substantial funding to figure out how to deliver that stuff and how to actually do it. So although we can't take away the risk, we can't take away the coastal erosion, I think the main benefit will be that there's a plan and there are some options and there's a funding and finance set of packages as well that come along with that. But we will be, as an absolute starting point, working with people in the coastal communities to listen to their hopes, fears, their needs, the situation really, the circumstances and the challenges that they face in relation to this physical change that's inevitable.
Does it sparkle? Never thought that would happen again, I tell you. It's beautiful. It is such a beautiful village. I always still think I'm very lucky. Well, I'm, you know, basically I've still got quite a few years to go yet, so I would like a way out. I would like to be offered a way out, very reluctantly. Basically, there are some new builds come up in the village, and they're retailing between 450,000 to 650. As you can see, they're lovely, but there's no way I could afford any of this. Pretty sad, really, because the people that had to move, and I will have to move, that I won't be able to live in Hayesborough anymore. So, unfortunately. You know, I didn't believe it was going to go in my lifetime or my children's, and that is the most shocking thing about it. The scheme that is going ahead at the moment, they have talked about sort of money, and I do want out whilst I can. I'd love to stay where I live, but unfortunately I need to be realistic and I need to get a new property, move on.
Coastal erosion is it's a necessary evil, really. If people didn't live on the coast, our coast would be naturally functioning and dynamic, and it wouldn't be seen as a problem. The interruptions to the system that we've introduced, which are stopping erosion in some places, because they're defending, they're stopping the cliffs from retreating. We know that we have less beach material, and with climate change, sea level rise, our beach levels are lowering, which inherently means that our coastline is becoming more vulnerable. So it's a connected process and it's a system. This isn't just an issue for Hayesborough, this is an issue for a lot of places and will be. We know enough to know that change is coming, we can't hold back the sea. Even if we were to defend the whole coast, if money were no object, we might be able to do that, but eventually those defences would fail. And that would lead to catastrophic impacts. Exacerbated coastal erosion in some places. We might have to think about the viability, really, I suppose, of some of our coastal settlements. Well, there are other low-lying areas which will be flooded permanently, and that will lead to huge loss of life and impacts on our systems, our human systems. Nothing stays the same, and I think it's a responsibility for all of us to acknowledge that we need to anticipate it and prepare and be realistic.
Come on in, quickly. So on the 13th of December last year, 8 metres. On the 20th of March, hello cat, it was 4.13. I'll see what it is now. 4.1. So it's not gone too much in the last, thankfully, April. Stop playing tight ropes, Leo. Come on. Yes. I have here with me the local paper, which one of my neighbours dropped through my door to tell me where am I meant to be looking at, which direction, by the way.
You can look at me if you want.
Oh, good. It's easier to talk to people anyway. Yes, I have here a newspaper cutting which one of my neighbours dropped into me. She said to me, had I heard what was happening? And I said no, because I'd been away. And she said, there is funding for North Norfolk, for the coast. And I thought, that is splendid. At last we're going to get sea defences. But that is apparently not the case. But I'm going to have a look now and see what it actually does tell us. Yes, 36 million investment to help North Norfolk adapt to erosion. Communities are at risk of erosion are being offered millions of pounds to help them adapt to the threat. Government is making 36 million available for the district to share with part of Yorkshire. Communities will be encouraged to bid for the money, which could allow towns and villages to adjust to a shrinking coastline. This is just absolutely incredible rubbish, because that amount of money could actually prevent or very much slow down coastal erosion so that we wouldn't have to be adapting. And this is where we have to come back at them and say that we do want preventative measures here. We don't want to adapt. We want to keep our community. We don't want to lose our lighthouse. We don't want to lose our church, our pub, and St Mary's Manor House either. And I do not want this to happen. And I will continue to say loudly that what we need is some kind of sea defences. I think we've just got to keep trying. I wish I wasn't 77 and too exhausted by too many campaigns, but I'm not going to let this one go. And I hope that if I do drop down dead in the middle of it, that it will be well and truly exploited to add grist to the fundraising for Hayesborough. Watching seashells becoming more derelict, seeing the water taken out, electricity taken out, knowing it is going to go shortly, and with the seashells going, it's another chapter closing.
Managed retreat, that means you're giving up. That means you just don't do anything about the erosion and you just move further inland. Well, when does that actually stop? Because it's not just this village, it's other, I understand it's other villages as well, but I can only talk about this village because this is where I live and this is where I want to stay. But unfortunately, I can't. Now, I personally think that's not fair. It's not my fault that I wasn't informed. You only ask the questions that are relevant, and I didn't think it was because I didn't know anything about it.
There's some people coming down the road now with a light to light the beacon. There are little villages that have disappeared along here, and I bet there are absolutely amazing little villages. So, you know, you've got Keswick and you've got Eccles. They're lovely little villages. They've gone. They're all under the sea.
The costs always lie somewhere, don't they? People who are essentially displaced, where will they go? What can we do to prepare better in the long run for the inevitable change so that it's less painful, I suppose?
We shouldn't have to rely on individual ginger groups setting up. There should be a proper government responsibility.
My thing that I would say to people is it's really happening, and wake up, not just here but this planet. That's all I've got to say about it.
What would you say to future generations?
Do something about it. People are saying, why didn't we do something? Why didn't we get the amount of cash and build sea defences so people can walk the Broads, people can walk along the coast? Well, once it's gone, it's gone. Makes me a bit tearful.
Me too.
But this is just a small issue. Christ, we got millions of tons worth of plastic in the ocean. All the forests are being chopped down for wood. We should be doing something about it. And I don't know. It seems to be a crying shame. Absolute crying shame. But hey, things might turn round. Let's hope so. I'm going to finish at that. I don't want to say any more.
At the end of the day, if the government's going to take no notice of the impact of global warming, somebody has to do something, otherwise we're all going to die.
I'm sure the powers that be can fight it. Who shall have the answers to the disasters we face? To that I will never be. My spirit is more to the
I'm going to say to people watching this film, what is happening in Hayesborough is a microcosm of what is happening in our country and around the world, and do everything you can personally to save the world, at the same time as please help support our efforts to raise the funds to save Hayesborough.